Hi, welcome, Deanna.
Hi, Malia. Welcome. We're back.
Yes, we're here to bloom.
Yes, we
Take
are.
two.
We are. Take two. This one will be way better, I hope.
That's all we can do is, deep hoping.
Yeah, exactly. Keep hoping. Keep trying. Never give up.
Exactly. Never give up.
Yeah,
So,
and that's
yeah.
that's kind of what we're going to talk about, right? Today, a little bit about
Yes.
the about just keep trying, don't give up.
Yeah.
And I know you have a special topic for us today. So,
Yes. Yes. Today we're going to talk about vulnerability,
mhm.
which I feel like, again, right, is kind of tied to not being a perfectionist.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot. I know that in our conversations, I've probably been the one that has struggled more with the I need to have an outline and I need to have this, and instead of just trying to just give it a shot, just
Yeah.
being vulnerable and allowing anything that I may deem as not going well enough, I need to kind of let that go. And so I know you've been really pivotal in that. For me, I've been able to allow things to just be. That's
Yes.
that's the easiest thing. I mean, that's my sentence. Just be. It's
Yes.
not, just be better. No, it's just be.
Yeah.
That is good enough, right? And so I just wanted to
Yes.
take a moment to thank you for that, Malia, because
Oh,
it has been trying to lose that mentality of allowing myself to be vulnerable, not only to my household, but to people outside of my close knit unit. So it's
yes.
super important. So it's a great topic today. Great
Well,
topic.
and thank you. And Deanna, as I've said before, I always learn so much from our discussions of,
Always.
right. I feel, when other people are vulnerable in the right setting, right, then we can be more vulnerable. So I felt like that was something that I really admired about you, was that you were really good about sharing about yourself, right? Because
Mhm.
again, I'm definitely a recovering perfectionist of, if I could just look perfect from the outside, I can finally let myself relax and be happy. Finally, all this work,
Oh
right?
my gosh, yes.
And I
Yes.
just think, um, giving it up and really being able, right, to dig a little deeper into my vulnerability. You know, um, Full disclosure, when I first saw the Brene Brown TED Talk, whatever that was, like 12 years
Oh
ago,
yeah, it was
about
like
vulnerability.
yeah, it was like 12 or
Yeah,
13 years ago. Yes.
yeah, yes. It was, when I heard this, I hated it conceptually, right? Like, shouldn't we armor up? And isn't
Yeah.
that the way that we're going to be happy?
Mhm.
And for anybody that hasn't seen the Brene Brown TED
Oh.
Talk, it's like one of the most, like, with just, millions and millions and millions of views,
Mhm.
of just really the power, right, of vulnerability. And
Yeah.
the fact is, for those that are not familiar with Brene Brown, that she was a shame researcher.
That's pretty much it. I think she called
And pretty
herself
much,
a researcher. I can't remember what the second word was, but yeah, shame
yeah,
researcher is pretty accurate.
pretty
She went
accurate.
down a
And
rabbit
I
hole.
mean, she said, on an airplane, right, nothing's gonna really, if people are wanting to make small conversation, that used to be, right, such a, people don't even want to admit that they have shame. I've had to look at some of the areas in my life where it's like, well, maybe there was shame there that I just didn't want to look at or
Mhm.
explore with any kind of curiosity, just like, put that over there.
Yeah, on a
Put that
shelf.
in a box.
Yeah, don't
Don't
even
look
look
at
at it.
that. Yeah, and so I thought, I feel like the embracing vulnerability is a practice that I know I'll have to work at probably my whole life, but it is something I do really try to embrace. And I know, we had kind of talked about that before, right, in the mindfulness group, but sometimes you got to let your freak flag fly so other people that are like you know where
I
to
love
find
that.
you.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a lot of truth to that. Like if I'm not being vulnerable and being who I really am, how am I going to meet the right people for me?
Well, it's interesting. So kind of taking it back to that Brene Brown TED Talk, I think what struck me when I was listening to it, because I actually had to go
Yeah,
back and re
yeah,
listen to it for the points. She said something so interesting to me because she said, when I ask people about their love or their
yeah,
first love, or if I ask them about their health, or if I ask them whatever the topic
yeah,
is, we always tend to, human nature, focus on the negative. You focus
yeah,
on your heartbreak, you focus on your illness, you focus
yeah,
on your lost job, you focus on lost opportunity, instead of focusing on all the other times that
yeah,
you maybe had a great love or a great job, or
yeah,
you've been healthy. And so it was
yeah,
really interesting how she kind of framed that up to start
yeah,
talking about how to be vulnerable, right?
yeah,
And how important it is. And I think what really resonated with me is when she started talking about children and how it would be so interesting, when our children, and I had to write it down, so I'm going to read it because she said, when if we were to tell them you are imperfect and you are wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging.
yeah.
And that
Oh,
was like, well, I sat there for a
yeah.
moment, kind of
Like,
sitting
oh,
in that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
It's
Because it's
beautiful.
not just
Yeah,
for children, right? It's
yeah,
for us as adults.
yeah.
So I don't know, I want to take a little bit away from, or let you kind of share.
I mean, I think that is beautiful and truthful. I mean, right? None of us, again, what even is perfect?
Hmm. Yeah,
Or what is that as
nothing.
even as a guidepost that we're trying to aim for?
Yeah.
But I think that I love the part, and I do think it is true, right? I mean, parts of life are struggle. I think we can
Hmm.
all
We can,
admit that. There's many great
oh
things in
yeah.
life, beautiful things, and 1,000 beautiful things and 1,000 sorrows, and that it
Hmm.
makes up life.
Yeah.
But I think it's like also the secondary part of that, of taking in that we are worthy just as we are, like that
Hmm.
we don't need to, like, you know, the hustle for our worthiness. I think is such a great part of that, that we don't, right? We can be more vulnerable when we don't need people from the outside, like telling us you're quote unquote good enough.
Yeah.
That we should, right, even from a very young age, treat children right. Like you're worthy just by being. It's not that you need
Yes.
to get any great thing accomplished. And I feel like when you already come from such worthiness, like within yourself, then you're willing to make mistakes and put yourself out there and
Hmm.
be, quote unquote, more real or raw, or your real self.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that those are two attributes that we need to carry with us a lot more. The fact
Yeah.
that we are worthy of of everything, whatever that is. We are worthy of
Yeah.
love. We are worthy of happiness. We are worthy of just any, you can fill that blank in with
Yeah.
anything you want, right? And the other thing that I think that we are worthy of is belonging.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is so important in our, just in human nature, right? Because we've talked a
Yeah.
lot, you and I, about the connectivity that humans, that we need, kind of that community that
We
we're trying
do.
to bloom,
Yes.
we're trying to bloom
Yes.
here, right? That we're trying to kind of create a movement of
Yeah.
people belonging
Yeah.
without having to sacrifice your vulnerability for it. I guess that's the best way to put it.
I 100% agree, right? part
Yeah.
of the Brene Brown work is really about, and the vulnerability she was talking about, right? The happiest people are the people that can really feel that they can be vulnerable and still be in
Yes.
community,
Yes.
versus she said the people that are the least happy are the people that are trying to fit in. They
Yes.
feel like their authentic self has to be over there, but to be in order to be within this group, they have to fit these certain confines. And that's like,
Mhm.
just by this using of the word confine, that you're like having to just kind of squeeze in. Well, it's a round hole, so I better make myself a circle, even if I
Yes.
really feel I am definitely a square. I mean, I just
Yeah.
think it is nice, I think, or I feel like, you can either let other people down or let yourself down about,
Mhm.
being who you really are.
Mhm.
That if you really want to be true to yourself, you just have to accept, right? Stepping away from the people pleasing and trying
Yes.
to be who you really are. I
Yes.
know Brene Brown had really found a lot of ideas from the Kristen Neff work on self
Mhm.
compassion. And I feel like these all sort of go together of, when you can really be self compassionate and a good friend to yourself, then you can allow yourself to be out there in the world, kind of,
Mhm.
warts and all, because
Yeah.
you're already getting such a kind voice coming from inside yourself.
I think that's something that's so important that we don't necessarily do a lot of to ourselves, and I think as women, we carry a lot of no disrespect or disregard for what men go through.
Yeah.
But I do believe that as women, we carry the weight of the world, right? Are
Yeah.
children going to be okay? Is the household going to be okay? Is my job okay? Are my parents okay? It's just all
Yeah.
these things that we weigh ourselves down with, and I feel like we're not kind enough to ourselves to begin with.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
feel like if we want to be kind and gentle with people outside of our four walls, it starts with us, right?
Yes.
We need to believe that we can be kind and gentle to ourselves, which is something that Renee really focuses on, right? Being kinder and gentler to ourselves so that we can be kinder and gentler other people. And I
Yeah.
think it sounds so easy. And for
Yeah.
some reason, we wear ourselves down a lot of the time. And
Yes.
that's one thing that I'm going to work on to not do anymore. And I've gotten a lot better. I'm always a
Yeah.
work in progress. I'm a work in
Yes.
progress, but I've gotten a lot better. And I think where I've struggled is her sentence where she says, I'm not blank enough,
Yeah.
right? Fill in the blank. And we all have that
Yeah. Yeah.
innumerable number of words that go in that
Yeah.
blank. And
Yeah.
I think I need to switch that to the positive, which is I am enough, and just
Yeah.
end it there. Three
Yeah.
words, done,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I feel like that's so true.
mhm,
Marissa Peer, who was a famous therapist in Europe, that's her big line. She's like,
wow,
she'd work with all of these famous people in England and then,
mhm,
was coming here to work with some celebrities in the US. And she's like, when it comes down to it, these people that are so successful in the world's eyes, but are still so miserable, like deep down, it comes to a feeling of I'm not enough,
yeah,
that it doesn't. And I think, right, with both of us, being moms as well, right?
mhm,
That's really something that I hope, right? If I put this work in to myself about knowing that I'm enough and being a good
mhm,
friend to myself, I'm, right, wanting to pass that on to
yeah,
my children. If I'm
absolutely,
really calm and happy within myself, I'm not gonna, it would seem right for me to then turn around and like, yell at kids, right? It would seem
yeah,
irrational almost. If you're so
yeah,
kind to yourself, that kind of kindness shines outward, but it's got to
yeah.
start with you. I know we've talked a little bit before, but I really like Dan Siegel. He wrote The Whole Brain
Oh,
Child. where
Yes.
it's kind of talking about these kind of concepts
Hmm.
of if you really want to raise calm and happy children, you have to be, the captain of the ship, the calm
Hmm.
captain that can kind
Hmm.
of, and I feel like these two works, come together, right?
Right.
You give
Yeah,
yourself self-compassion, then you can give your kids, compassion. It just
absolutely.
got to start with us.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example to actually be able to kind of start working on ourselves or even just in our, our tight-knit family. I think it's a
Yeah.
great way to take baby steps towards that calmer self and
Yes.
even vulnerable, right? Because there's been I don't know how many of any everyone knows about my story, but I have a 28-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, raised them completely different, which is
Yeah.
crazy, right? But I found myself that with the 11-year-old, I have been more vulnerable versus
Yeah.
trying to be stoic and I can
Yeah.
handle anything with the 28-year-old. And now I've even found myself on several occasions because I'm not perfect and
Yeah.
I am a work in progress, where I have
Yeah.
to apologize. I'm
Yeah.
really sorry that I
Yeah.
took this out of line or that I yelled or that I didn't give you the time that you requested, whatever the reason was.
Yeah.
Um, I have found myself doing that with the younger one. And it's
Yeah.
so powerful
Yeah.
when your little one knows that
Yeah.
you make mistakes. You're not
Yeah.
perfect. And I think
Yeah.
that was a big kind of moment for me of saying, ow, not that I messed up bad with the first one, but it's just different. And
Yeah.
so I think that that vulnerability, that calmness, that peace, that happiness really says a lot about how we outwardly project that
Yeah.
to people around us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel the same way, I know we like that line, there's Ted Lasso where it's like prog mess, like you're just a mess in prog. I mean, I hear
Yes,
you. If I wasn't such a mess, I wouldn't have spent so much time
I know.
reading different materials of this sort, right?
Oh gosh.
But being a prog mess, and I think, right, really having a deep desire of like, well, maybe, we all have certain things from our past that maybe we didn't necessarily want, to carry on with our children, and
Yeah.
just to try to look at ourselves. And I hear you again for so many times. I was like, I think my modus operandi when younger was like, well, if I just run fast enough, I won't have to look at any of this stuff. If
Yeah.
I just run, 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 run. And then, surprise, surprise, that didn't work. And I
Yeah.
did feel like, with Brene Brown, I liked that she both, right, had the work on vulnerability, and then also
Yeah.
was talking a lot about, she wrote a book, The Atlas of Emotions,
Oh, yes.
and just kind of talking about that because I thought it was really interesting, right? It's hard to know our deeper emotional landscape
Hmm.
when we don't have the vocabulary around it,
Right.
and how a lot of like Americans can only be like, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry.
Yeah,
And that really,
exactly.
right, we should have this like, so I've been trying to kind of at least normalize some of like these emotional words,
Hmm.
and to say, normalize for children as well. That about one situation you may feel very conflicting in ways, and that's
Yeah.
also okay, right? That
Hmm.
you could have this thing that you're both frustrated and excited.
Yeah.
You both
Yes.
love this aspect of your job, and you also can completely hate another aspect all in the
Oh,
same job.
absolutely. Yes.
That to really,
Yes.
um, I say, right, I try to imagine, or, that you're kind of trying to look behind the mask for all of these different conflicting things. And it can be really scary. And that's part
Ah.
of the vulnerability.
And I think
You know,
that's where hopefully we can help to kind of work through that mask. right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the messages that Brene Brown had in that TED Talk was we can't numb an emotion. We work
Yes.
so hard. And I
Yes.
think my younger self would agree with that numbing effect for a
Yeah.
lot of my life. I'm just not
Yes.
going to think about it, or I'm going to replace it with
Yeah.
XYZ, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really great way to kind of think about how you don't do that. You don't
Yeah.
numb away your emotion. You show your vulnerability,
Yeah.
um, and
That's
and
it. Yes.
work in a way of gratitude and joy every
Yeah.
day. And what a difference it makes in your life when you do that.
Yes.
So that's I think that that's
Yeah.
that if there's anything that I would say, walk away with, that's it. you
Yes.
know, Try to find that
Deanna,
gratitude and joy.
gratitude and joy and the
Yeah.
numbing thing. Because I hear you
Oh, yeah.
completely. I think up until the time I saw the TED Talk, like I
Mhm.
kind of was like, well, I'm gonna numb out all the pain and only feel all the love and joy.
We all do that, Malia.
And yeah, it turns out like when she was like, once you numb out one extreme, you numb out the other.
Yep.
I was just like, oh no.
I know.
It's just such a
I
big
know.
moment for me. And then just to really, right, to be able to try to feel
Mhm.
it all if we can,
If you
that
can.
as
Yeah.
we get more um Dan Siegel, that's part of his work as well as kind of expanding
Mhm.
the amount of emotions we can look at, right? That we can
Mhm.
eventually, the wheel of tolerance for the
Yeah.
emotions, the tough emotions, if we practice a little, we can just let in a little bit of the tough emotions, right? And then just do a little bit and then just slowly grow our tolerance. That over
Yeah.
time, we can get better at seeing and feeling it all. Like it doesn't have to be, I'm the prog mess. It does not have to be, I'm not going to think a thing and
Me
then
too.
tomorrow, I'm going to all of a sudden be enlightened. No, but I can at least in my own way with some self compassion, with
Mhm.
some vulnerability and curiosity about what's going on up there, just
Mhm.
try to be a little better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Just the
And not be
tiniest little,
scared.
and not
Yeah.
be scared.
And not be
You know,
scared to go into that, right? To go
yeah,
down that path, to work with those tough emotions.
yeah,
It can be really daunting for a person, but
yes,
I love the way how you said it. You do a little bit at a time, and then you kind of work. It's really amazing how the mind works, and it allows you to expand as you do a little bit of
yes,
work.
yes,
So work on the tough emotion a little bit, and then start to expand that and see where you are in a few months, right?
yes,
I think any person would be surprised at themselves at how much
yes,
progress you can make in a short amount of time. And I don't know that wherever we will never reach like perfection. I don't believe
yeah,
that, but we can
yeah,
always be better tomorrow than we are today.
yes,
You know?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And
Yeah.
for the wheel of tolerance, Dan Siegel was giving this example, and since you have the beautiful Hawaiian backdrop
Oh,
behind
thank
you,
you.
it's very it'll fit in. Um, but it gave the example of right as far as like expanding, what we can tolerate.
Hmm.
If you take, a tiny cup, right, and you pour a teaspoon of salt in there, it's
Hmm.
going to taste really salty.
Yeah.
But if you took it then, right, as you're kind of expanding out, right, if you took that same amount of salt and put it in a bigger body of water, it just doesn't quite have that same effect, right? It doesn't,
Exactly.
if you put that same
Yeah.
little bit of salt in your pool,
Yeah.
it would just, be able to really dissipate in a further and further area so it wouldn't taste as salty. And that's sort of how we can eventually kind of work with some of the really sad things, right, that do happen in life. the really struggle
They
things
do.
as Brené Brown, there are
Yeah.
these struggles that we have. And if we're able to kind of over time and working with ourselves and, self-compassion and self-soothing,
Hmm.
eventually, right, and increase our vessel so we can
Hmm.
handle these pieces of salt without it throwing off our game quite as much as it would have, in the past.
I love that visualization. I literally pictured what you were describing, right? The glass and then the bowl and then, just the teaspoon of salt. I mean, we're not going to escape the sad or the difficult moments in life ever, but I think it's how we approach them in a healthy way, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. And I think that's so important. That was
Yes.
beautiful,
Yes.
Malia. That was really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Well, and to have self-compassion when we mess
Yes.
up, because we invariably will. I mean, again,
Yeah. Don't be so
I
hard on
really wish I
ourselves.
was perfect, but I just think just to have the loving self-compassion
Yeah.
and the curiosity,
Hmm.
and I think, Deanna, if you'll just lead
Yeah.
us to close us out in the moment
Sure.
of silence, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to take this moment to just quiet our mind. Feel free to close your eyes. Feel free to look downward. Take a few breaths in deeply. I prefer to take them through my nose and exhale through my nose. Feel that belly breath really filling your belly as you breathe in. Exhale. Get that belly button all the way to your back as you wring out every last breath that's in there. Take a couple of breaths more. And I invite you to put your hand on your heart. This is an important moment for us. We're giving ourselves the time today, the self-compassion. We're being vulnerable. And take that one thing in your life right now at this moment that you are grateful for, whatever that is. Let's focus on that gratitude. Let's focus on the joy that it brings. Take a few more moments to just bask in that gratitude. And let's make sure that we are grateful to ourselves for taking the time to do this and take this pause today. They are so important. It's quick, bringing you all back to open your eyes. Thank yourselves. Take that breath. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Malia. What a great conversation. I always love talking to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Deanna. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all so
Have a
much.
great day.
Appreciate you all. Take
Yeah.
care.
Appreciate
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.